Everything changed in a matter of seconds. Welcome back to NFL Nexus, your home for deep, cinematic football analysis. I'm your host, and look, before we unravel one of the most intense, high-stakes situations currently unfolding in the National Football League, I need you to do a few quick things for us. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like this explainer, and definitely comment down below on what you think about this wild, unfolding drama as we go through it. And hey, if you really want to support the deep dive, documentary-style content we produce here week in and week out, consider supporting the channel by becoming a channel member. Now let's get into it. Today, we are looking at a franchise that is quite literally standing on a razor's edge, the Houston Texans. I mean, this is a team with legitimate, sky-high championship aspirations, right? It was entirely built on the historic rookie campaign of quarterback C.J. Stroud and that absolute defensive dominance of Will Anderson Jr. After a deep playoff run, this roster was meticulously, carefully constructed to win the Super Bowl right now. Not next year, right now. But as we all know, in professional football, the line between building a dynasty and watching a season collapse into complete chaos is incredibly, incredibly thin. Today, we're diving into a story of extreme pressure, desperate pivots, and very real off-field peril. It's a narrative that proves exactly what kind of extreme measures a front office will explore when they are pushed to the absolute brink.
So you really have to ask yourself, what happens when a defense loses its anchor? Seriously, pause and just think about that for a second. The modern NFL, it's an unforgiving offensive arms race. Defenses today are these incredibly complex ecosystems that require absolute, unquestioned synchronicity. You pull just one vital piece out of the center of that ecosystem, and the entire structure literally threatens to collapse on itself. And look, we're not just talking about losing a guy who makes tackles. It's about losing the player who wears the green dot on the back of his helmet, the man who is solely responsible for receiving the play calls from the sideline, aligning the massive front seven, and adjusting the entire defense to those crazy complex pre-snap motions in real time. When that anchor snaps, the ripple effects absolutely tear through the entire locker room. It forces general managers and head coaches to scramble. They have to look for lifelines in the darkest, most unpredictable corners of the league just to keep the ship afloat. Section 1. The Houston Defensive Crisis.
So we have a massive crisis right out of the gate here. DeMeco Ryans' defensive scheme is completely reliant on speed, intelligence, and just violent downhill execution. It requires middle linebackers who can process an offensive formation in literally milliseconds and then react with absolute physical certainty. When you spend your entire offseason building a defensive identity around that, any disruption to that core group is a massive, glowing vulnerability. And let me tell you, opposing offensive coordinators, they are like sharks. They smell one drop of blood in the water and they will relentlessly attack that exact wound all game long. And right now, the Texans are bleeding badly from the dead center of their defense. Linebacker E.J. Speed is officially lost for the entire 2026 season due to a severe quad injury. And in the NFL, you have to understand, a torn or severely damaged quad is pretty much a catastrophic event for a linebacker. It completely destroys the explosive lateral burst you absolutely need to track down running backs and mirror those incredibly athletic tight ends. Speed was literally the perfect fit for Ryan's system. He boasted these elite speed metrics and phenomenal pass coverage grades that allowed the defense to disguise exactly what they were doing. But instead, before the real battle even gets going, his season is just over. Done. This leaves a massive, echoing void in the very center of the Texans' defense. It's exactly the kind of void that can completely derail a championship window if it isn't addressed immediately and with absolute precision.
Section 2. Enter Henry To'oTo'o.
With their anchor completely gone, the spotlight immediately, and I mean violently, swings over to our first protagonist here. Henry To'oTo'o is standing at a sudden, incredibly unexpected crossroads in his career. He isn't just a complimentary piece anymore. He is suddenly the man thrust directly into the fire. You know, in the NFL, a massive opportunity often comes disguised as an insurmountable crisis. For To'oTo'o, this is the exact moment that is either going to define his legacy for years to come or completely expose his limitations on a national stage. Right now, he currently sits at number 16 on the list of the most impactful players on this current Houston roster. Think about that, 16 out of 53 men. That vividly illustrates his undeniable value to this franchise even before the crisis hit. He isn't some fringe practice squad guy. He has proven beyond a doubt that he belongs on an NFL field. But guys, the gap between being the 16th most important player in a nice complementary role and being the top 3 defensive anchor, that gap is astronomical. All of the communication duties shift entirely to him now. He has to elevate his game from being a competent starter to being the defensive savior, almost overnight.
Just look at the sheer weight of the responsibility resting on this guy's shoulders right now.
He's being thrust into replacing EJ Speed, but here's the kicker, he is doing it while entering a make-or-break contract year. He hasn't received that big extension yet, he is literally playing for his livelihood this season. And there's a massive, massive financial gulf in this league between a middle-tier rotational linebacker making maybe $3 to $4 million a year and a premier green dot anchor who commands $15 to $20 million guaranteed. And to his credit, he actually has the resume to fight for that premier payday. We're talking back-to-back seasons of 95-plus tackles. You don't do that by accident. That takes a relentless, non-stop motor. He is delivering 7 tackles for loss every single year, proving he can actually penetrate the backfield and disrupt the play. He even has 4 combined sacks over his first 2 seasons. The production is absolutely there. He has been a really consistent piece, a tough, downhill tackler who flashes brilliant play recognition. But doing this in the shadows as a secondary guy is one thing. Doing it with the entire defensive weight of a Super Bowl contender on your back in a contract year, that is a pressure cooker that breaks even the strongest men.
Section 3. Strengths and fatal flaws. But listen, we have to be totally clinical here. We can't just look at the raw tackle numbers and crown him the definitive answer for Houston. Every single asset in the NFL has a profile, right? It's a very delicate balance of what they do exceptionally well and what opposing offenses will ruthlessly try to exploit on Sundays. We really have to look at Henry 2020 through the cold, objective lens of a pro scout. So on the left side, you have the asset. He possesses a brilliant football mind. His high-level play recognition and elite athleticism really do make him a perfect fit for an off-the-ball linebacker in DeMeco Ryans' system. He reacts incredibly fast and he tackles hard. But you gotta look at the right side, the flaws. He is undeniably undersized for the position at 6'2" and just 228 pounds. In a league where massive 320-pound offensive guards are pulling and climbing to the second level with frankly terrifying speed, a 228-pound linebacker can just get swallowed up entirely. When a 320-pound mauler gets his hands inside the chest plate of an undersized backer, it physically breaks down the entire defensive front. The linebacker gets completely washed out of the play, opening up gaping rushing lanes. Because of his size, 2020 often relies on being overly aggressive just to beat those massive blockers to the spot. And that over-aggression leads to structural inconsistencies in both the run game and in coverage. If offenses decide to deliberately target his size, Houston is going to bleed yardage. Now, General Manager Nick Caserio knows all of this. The front office knows this, which is exactly why they constructed a pretty intricate insurance policy in the background. Look at the proactive depth moves they've scrambled to put together recently. They heavily targeted the draft, bringing in Day 3 linebackers Wade Woodaz and Aiden Fisher, though it's worth noting Woodaz is definitely a long-term developmental project requiring some heavy coaching before he's ready. They also picked up the phone and engineered a trade with New England for Marte Mapu, targeting that hybrid safety linebacker profile after Mapu fell out of favor in the Patriots' changing defensive scheme. Plus, they ensured they retain their high-level coverage linebacker Jamal Hill for his 3rd season. So they are basically throwing bodies at the problem, trying to build a safety net underneath Henry To'oTo'o. But make absolutely no mistake about it, while they have these backups down the depth chart, To'oTo'o staying healthy and playing at an elite level is completely paramount. If he goes down, this cobbled-together insurance policy suddenly becomes the frontline defense, and that is a terrifying prospect for a team trying to win a Super Bowl. But then, the Texans looked elsewhere. And guys, this is where the story shifts dramatically. This is exactly where standard on-field football strategy, drafting rookies, trading for depth, relying on veterans, collides with something much darker and much, much more unpredictable. When a team is pushed to the brink, when they really feel the foundational pieces of their defense slipping away, they begin to explore avenues that most organizations would immediately shut down. They start looking at the wild cards.
Section 4. A desperate cornerback gamble.
We are officially moving from a simple roster update into what feels like a dramatic thriller, because the Houston Texans, in their desperate pursuit of defensive perfection, have literally opened their doors to one of the most controversial figures in the sport today. They are looking to shore up the secondary to help out their battered linebacking core, and they are trying to do it by rolling the dice on a deeply disgraced talent. Let's just trace the catastrophic fall of Terrion Arnold for a second. Back in 2024, just 2 years ago, he was a first-round pick by the Detroit Lions. He was an elite prospect with the entire world at his feet. He had staggering draft pedigree, blazing sub-4.4 speed, and these absolute lockdown, sticky man coverage skills that just made him a complete nightmare for opposing wide receivers. He was promised millions of dollars and a starring role in the NFL. Fast forward to early June of 2026. After just 2 seasons in the league, he is suddenly and shockingly released by Detroit. I mean, why would a team abandon a first-round investment so quickly? Well, we found out on June 24, 2026, when Terrion Arnold walked into a police station and turned himself into authorities. In the span of just 24 months, this guy went from the absolute pinnacle of the draft stage to the center of a major criminal investigation.
Section 5. Talent versus dark reality.
So, we have to separate the athlete from the allegations here to really understand the magnitude of this situation. This is a pure, head-on collision of undeniable, top-tier football talent versus a profoundly dark legal reality. We are simply reporting the facts here as they are laid out in the legal and team documents, okay? But I gotta say, the facts themselves are chilling, and they cast a massive, heavy shadow over any team even considering bringing him into their locker room. These are the allegations Terrion Arnold is currently facing. He is facing severe felony charges. We are talking about armed robbery, we are talking about kidnapping. Specifically, he is accused of orchestrating the abduction and the physical beating of 3 men. These are not minor slap-on-the-wrist infractions. These are grave, life-altering accusations that carry the potential for heavy prison time. And within the context of the NFL, the fallout is just absolute. Even if a team signs him today, the league's front office can step in and place him directly on the commissioner's exempt list. That means he could be effectively banned from ever stepping onto a football field while the legal process plays out, completely rendering the contract a massive organizational liability. It is a stark, jarring contrast to the game of football. When you read a list like this, you really have to ask yourself, how absolutely desperate does a football franchise have to be to overlook this kind of legal gravity in exchange for athletic production?
And the catalyst for all this alleged violence? $100,000. According to prosecutors, this hard figure grounds the entire controversy. Arnold allegedly suspected these 3 victims of stealing $100,000 in cash, along with some luxury goods, directly from him. That is the suspected motive behind the alleged abduction and beatings. It is a terrifying glimpse into a world that is so far removed from playbooks and defensive schemes, it's almost hard to wrap your head around. This is the baggage. This is the immense legal and media storm that is going to follow Terrion Arnold wherever he goes. Just think about the absolute public relations nightmare this creates for a front office. Imagine a head coach stepping up to the podium for a routine Tuesday locker room press conference. He's fully expecting to talk about third down efficiency and red zone defense, and instead, he is utterly bombarded by reporters asking about felony kidnapping charges and armed robbery. It completely hijacks the entire cultural foundation of the franchise.
And honestly, this illustrates just how incredibly far out on a limb Houston is willing to go right now. While reports indicate that 4 teams showed some minor level of interest or made calls to his camp, Houston is the only team to actually host Arnold for an official visit following his release. Let that sink in for a minute. Out of 32 NFL franchises, 31 deemed the risk way too radioactive to even bring him into the building for a cup of coffee. But the Texans? Staring down the barrel of a depleted defense, they brought this massive, highly controversial wild card right through their front doors. They looked him in the eye. You really have to connect the chain of events here to see the sheer desperation at play. They are only taking this meeting, they are only inviting this media circus into their building because EJ Speed's quad tendon snapped. Literally one catastrophic physical injury on the field has triggered a desperate, wide-net search for secondary talent off the field. It's leading them to weigh a total moral and PR nightmare against the benefit of fielding a first-round talent in their secondary.
Section 6. The ultimate consequence.
So let's zoom out for a second to look at the massive, overarching narrative here. Because this isn't just a simple story about a linebacker dealing with an injury or a cornerback dealing with the law. It is a profound story about the pressure cooker of professional sports. It is about the extreme, sometimes truly unfathomable lengths a front office will explore when they believe a championship is finally within their grasp, but they can see their defensive foundation cracking in real time. We are looking at 2 radically different paths, potentially converging on one single defense. On the left side, you have Henry To'oTo'o, a reliable, albeit slightly undersized, homegrown linebacker who is out there fighting tooth and nail on the gridiron for his financial future. He represents the traditional, grueling NFL grind. But on the right side, you have Terrion Arnold, an elite but deeply disgraced cornerback who is fighting for his literal freedom in a court of law. He represents the ultimate radioactive gamble. The fact that the Houston Texans are completely relying on the former to step up while actively, openly exploring the latter perfectly illustrates a franchise that is operating at the absolute peak of desperation and ambition. So the ultimate question remains, will these desperate moves actually build a champion, or will they completely break a franchise from the inside out? Honestly, that is the question that is going to define the Houston Texans' entire 2026 season. Can To'oTo'o really shoulder the immense burden of wearing that green dot? And can the front office survive the inevitable fallout of flirting with a player facing felony kidnapping charges? The margin for error is officially gone. What do you guys think? Drop down in the comments right now and let me know if you think the Texans are making a genius chess move to save their championship window, or if they're just playing with absolute fire. Thank you so much for diving deep with me on this explainer today. Make sure you subscribe to NFL Nexus, like this explainer, and definitely consider becoming a channel member to support this deep dive, documentary-style content we love making for you. We'll see you next time as we continue to unpack the most intense stories in the league.